All right, good morning. I know we still have a line out at the coffee, but I want to take the liberty of taking a few extra minutes to introduce Bonnie, so we're going to start right on time. As always, just bring to your attention the great upcoming Grand Round sessions, including the relatively new Quality Improvement Series with Lane Donnelly, our Chief Quality Officer. Hope everybody's had a chance to see this. So introducing text attendance, finally. The Engage educational program is upcoming, and you can see that this next speaker is Christopher Stove on literature searches. And please mark your calendar. The Maternal Child Health Research Institute Scientific Symposium is coming up. We're so fortunate that Diana Bianchi, who's not only a Stanford alumnus and a pediatrician, but is now the director of NICHD and is going to be spending the day with us. Last year was the first time we did this. We had over 400 registrants, and it's an incredible day to learn about everything that's happening in maternal and child health across this campus. So that's Friday, November 15th, in 2 weeks. Okay, so Bonnie Halpern-Felsher. I could spend a long time introducing Bonnie. I have a sense most of you know her, but she's quite an extraordinary track record well before the vaping phenomenon. So she is a professor of pediatrics, a developmental psychologist with training in adolescent health, and we were so fortunate to recruit her from UCSF 5 years ago, does social, environmental, cognitive, and psychosocial factors involved in health-related decision-making, perceptions of risk and vulnerability, health communication, and risk behavior. Importantly, or in particular, her research is focused on understanding, preventing, and reducing adolescents and young adults' engagement and risk behaviors, including unsafe driving, alcohol, tobacco, other drug usage, and risky sexual behavior. It's quite something to go back and look at some of the original objectives of her grants not all that long ago, quite prescient. Her research is funded by the NIH through a P50 Center grant, as well as California's tobacco-related disease research program. And periodically, we give updates on how many hundreds of thousands youth have been touched by her tobacco prevention toolkit. What's the latest number? 1 million. Okay. Yes, I think it was just 500,000 last time we mentioned this. So what's interesting about this grant is it's a longitudinal study of adolescents and young adults' perceptions of risk, acceptability, and benefits of conventional, new, and emerging tobacco products, as well as marijuana and other drugs, and the extent to which contextual factors, including exposure to pro and anti-tobacco media, influence perceptions in subsequent tobacco and marijuana use. Her findings have been really critical to the FDA for the regulation of tobacco products and marketing. She also has a U54 from the NIH to extend this critical work to youth in rural areas who are particular risk for drug use. I already mentioned the tobacco prevention toolkit. We could probably do a whole separate grand rounds on that. I have to say we were very fortunate that Bonnie gave a presentation to the board of directors, and I think in real time every one of them was texting either their children or their grandchildren to find out if they were using these devices. A little bit of a panic attack around the room. Bonnie is an extraordinary teacher and mentor. She was recruited here as Director of Research in Adolescent Medicine and Associate Director of the Fellowship, but since then has just stepped up and assumed the roles as co-leader of the Clinical Scholarly Concentration within our residency, and then very importantly, the Director of the Research Fellowship in the Department of Pediatrics. And in partnership with Gary Shaw, they've developed a Fellows Research Club, a Fellows Grant Writing Club, and a Research Boot Camp. And I can tell you the caliber of the MCHRI grants that our fellows are writing, first-year fellows are writing, has just so elevated. Unbelievable mentor with 50 postdocs and various number of trainees. And last, she's the program director and the PI of a NIH-funded short-term education program for underrepresented persons, Step Up, summer science high school program, and then just got her third round of funding for that. And each time I get to write letters of support on the progress. And she mentors and supervises 22 to 25 junior and senior high school students each year, and now has a program focused on community college students interested in medicine and science. And I have the great pleasure of having lunch with those students, and I think just about every one of them in the community colleges has been accepted to a UC, 4-year school, and it's just a profound legacy. So please join me in welcoming Bonnie.
Thank you so much. Is this working? We good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I tend to be a pacer, so I'm going to come in the front. And also, as my husband would say, high challenge, better than being behind there and you can't see me. All right, so thank you. I'm very excited to talk to you today, but not excited to talk to you given the situation that we're in with vaping. So first, to thank our funders. We have quite a few, including some amazing donors to our work. And I do want to disclose that I am retained as an expert witness in a number of litigations against the vaping industry. So I'm going to talk to you today about the use rates, an introduction to e-cigarettes, what they are, how they work, some of the health effects, why youth are using, and then what you can do about it. So the really good news with adolescents is that we are seeing a marked decrease in cigarette use. In California, the numbers are about 5%, and usually those are youth with some mental health issues or other things that bring them to use cigarettes. So that's the good news. The bad news has to do with the e-cigarettes that we're seeing on the market. So in the last from 2017 to 2018, sorry, don't have that here. From 2017 to 2018, we saw a 78% increase in the number of youth who are using e-cigarettes in the past month. And just in the last year, we've seen 27% on national data reporting that they've used e-cigarettes. Having gone around the country with the toolkit and with my team, we would easily argue that those numbers are vastly underestimated. And when you talk to youth, you talk to educators, you talk to parents, they're saying it's at least 50 to 60%. And when I say to students, think about somebody in your class who's vaping, they all look at each other because they all are. So this is a huge issue going on. So if you have not seen them, here, I actually should have brought some products for you. We're fortunate that a news agency was doing filming of me, bought $1,800 worth of products and couldn't fly them across the country, so we now have them in our office under lock and key. But these are what some of them look like. And is anybody here not heard of a Juul? Never heard of a Juul? Great. About 6 months ago when I would give this talk, about half would not have heard of a Juul. So this is great. So this is a Juul right here. So let's talk about what some of these products are. I would argue that the rise in e-cigarette use is directly related to the increase in Juul use. If you look at this graph here by the Public Health Law Center, the blue is the total market share of e-cigarettes on the market right now. But if you look at the red, that's the proportion of the market share that is due to Juul usage. This really is a Juuling epidemic, and that's where I would start with this. But having said that, if you look at the Juul, really the Juul has spawned hundreds and hundreds of knockoff products. And this is speeding up as you go through to see the rate at which this proliferation of products has continued throughout the US and the world. And these products are cool. They look cool. They look like USBs. If you look here, it's really clear why it's so difficult to spot these, and we'll show more pictures around that. But these are some of the products that have been on the market, and this is just one picture. We see new products coming on the market almost daily. Every day I wake up to news on a new product, a new lawsuit, or whatever. The irony is Juul is suing these knockoff companies. I'll let that sit in your humor for a second. Often we talk about these as hidden in plain sight. So just take 10 seconds to see if you can figure out where the e-cigarettes are. Okay. Did you spot them? All right, so this one, this is the Soren. This looks like a highlighter. This one looks like a USB. This is a Juul pod right here sitting in our bowl at work. And then these two vape pens sitting in a carton of pens. No wonder why parents and healthcare providers and educators were taken off guard when they're so easy to hide. Let's look at them in size-wise. You can look at next to a quarter or a paper clip how small these are. When I talk to police officers, school resource officers, they'll say the kids are tucking them in their belts, in their shoes. They're really easy to hide from people. So let's talk a little bit about these different products and why we're so concerned about them. On your right is what I would call the older, the third generation mods. They were called mods because you can modify the e-cigarette device itself. You can modify the heat. You can modify this part here, which really is the part you interchange to look at voltage and heat and how much puff actually you take in. The one on the left, the Juul, is the fourth generation, the newer generation. It's funny to refer to something as old or new when these products only came on the market in 2007, Juul in 2015, but they're still relatively new products. So let's talk about some of the big differences. The first thing has to do with the nicotine. So the older e-cigarette products, as well as cigarettes, use a free base formula for nicotine. What does that mean? Basically, the idea of the free base is it uses ammonia and it uses sugars to mix with the nicotine and allow it to be inhaled into your body and to be absorbed quickly and to go to the brain, which happens in about 7 seconds. The effect from breathing it in through the body, heart, lung, blood, heart, lung, brain is about 7 to 10 seconds. That's what was being used in the free base nicotine. What Juul did is they patented a salt-based nicotine. The salt-based nicotine uses benzoic acid to change the pH level of the nicotine. So basically, the bottom line is when you take it in, unlike a cigarette where you feel that more painful throat hit, and that was true with the older e-cigarettes, with a Juul, you take it in, you don't feel the painful throat hit as much. It doesn't bother you, you don't cough as much, but it still gets absorbed, and people are thinking absorbed even faster to the brain. High amounts of concentrated nicotine, and therefore it's easier to become addicted faster. And for somebody who's a young person who's never used a cigarette, which is the case of most of our youth right now, they're not starting with cigarettes and moving to e-cigarettes, they're starting with e-cigarettes and then sometimes moving to cigarettes. They're nicotine naive. So they take this product in, and if it hurts or they don't like it or they cough or they throw up, they're going to stop using it. Whereas with the Juul, they take it in and instead they get flavors and they get smoothness, and they don't realize how much nicotine they're using in a short period of time, how much we'll talk about in a second. So that's a really important difference. All of the new products on the market have this more salt-based nicotine. The other has to do with the amount of nicotine in here. So the older products had between 0 and about 36 milligrams of nicotine in the e-Juice, whereas Juul is 41 milligrams of nicotine. How much is that? I promise I'll tell you in a second. That's a lot of nicotine. Then we talk about them as being refillable or not. The mods, the second generation and third generations, the mods, you can refill, you can manipulate, you can open them and put different liquids in there, including marijuana. Juul is made not to be refilled. It's called a closed system. But having said that, I'll show you some data later, we still know that about at least 20% of adolescents are easily opening these. A quick YouTube search tells you how to do it, with these adults opening it up and showing you how to do it without using gloves, getting the benzoic acid all over them. So that's a big issue with these as well. So I promised to tell you how much nicotine is in these e-cigarettes. This is one of the most controversial slides. My lab is sitting in front. Could tell you, in fact, I had a debate with somebody on the phone the other day. Why? So as you probably know, a pack of cigarettes has 20 cigarettes. Each cigarette has about 8 milligrams of nicotine in it. However, what you actually inhale, what's called the yield, is about 1 milligram of nicotine. So and that is because it goes in the air, it goes in the ashtray, whatever. You only inhale about 1 milligram of nicotine. So really you're looking at about 20 milligrams of nicotine in this. So about 20 cigarettes is there. A Juul pod has 41 milligrams. Juul brags on their website that you get at least 80% of that into your body. Woohoo! So what does that mean? If you just simply do math, you're talking about the nicotine that you would find in 1.5 to 2 packs of cigarettes. And I had an interesting debate with some public health friends of mine and others, and I had somebody in Hawaii who I went to present at, and she called me and said, she's a counselor, and said, I love your work, but you're wrong. The kids coming in tell me you're wrong on this. And I said, oh, okay, had this great debate. Why am I wrong? Explain. Well, the kids say the Juul website has 1 pack of cigarettes. You're going to believe that? Okay. So we went through the math, and all my public health friends also are saying it's 1 pack. That is what the Juul website would have you say. But if you look at the math, and there's actually data out there, it's closer to 1.5 to 2 packs. Why do we care about it? It has to do with why kids are so addicted. If they're using 1 to 3 pods a day, they're consuming 1 to 4, 5, 6 packs of cigarettes worth of nicotine. That's why that's important to keep in mind. The Fix and the Soren now is becoming really popular. Those are upwards of 75 to 90 cigarettes worth of nicotine. Okay. So what are some of the chemicals that are found? I promise I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just want to show you some of them. And part of why I show you this is also, if you've been in tobacco control for a long time, I have for 25 years, I hate to say that, then these are the kinds of slides and pictures we would show with cigarettes. We're not that different from the chemicals that we're seeing in e-cigarettes. And what's interesting is now e-cigarette companies are supposed to be putting their ingredients on the package. So Juul has 7 or 8, 9 ingredients on their package, but actually studies are showing it's more like 59. So there's a lot of stuff in there, including the same kinds of chemicals that we saw in cigarettes. And the ones that are in yellow, if I haven't convinced you enough, are the ones that FDA say are particularly harmful. So why do we care about this? Well, clearly the brain. We're worried, especially for somebody under 25, when their brains are developing, you consume, you inhale such a large amount of nicotine. We know that it is changing your brain, it's rewiring it, and it's allowing you to become addicted quickly. And then you add to that the fact that you've got the benzoic acid, the salt-based nicotine, high concentrations of nicotine. It's not surprising that it's rewiring the brain and young people are becoming addicted so quickly. But we also know through some work that's been done in here, in Stanford, in Juuls lab, as well as others, that e-cigarettes are directly related to issues with the heart and issues with the lungs. And we also know that we're seeing some increased acid reflux and some other things with the GI system. So there's a whole lot of research out there showing, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. I do want to talk about sort of the elephant in the room, the lung-related diseases that we're seeing right now. These are the latest data that just came out this week from the CDC around the vaping-related lung illnesses. What they're calling it is EVALI, basically e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury, vaping-related. We're seeing these cases across 49 states. We're seeing over 1,800 cases right now, with the latest saying 37 deaths. What we're finding is about 14% are under age 18 and 40% are young adults. And then what's really important is there's this debate. Well, are these vaping-related lung illnesses due to THC, the lack of market? Is it due to the nicotine? Yes, yes, yes. We don't totally know. The problem is that most people, particularly youth, start off using the nicotine and move to THC. So they're combining these two chemicals, these two drugs in the product, and we're not really sure. So even amongst, it's about 800 plus patients who have come forth with what they're using, and we think they're telling the truth, but you never know, because they're in a situation where especially the youth don't necessarily want to report to their parents. But we do know that a lot of them are containing THC, a lot of them are containing nicotine, several of them are containing both. We really don't know. So this has led to the CDC and to all of us in public health doing this work to say, stop vaping, period. We don't know. And then a lot of people have often also said, well, these are black market products. They're all black market products right now. There is no FDA authorization of any e-cigarette product, period, despite the fact that since 2016, the companies are supposed to put in a proposal to have authorization before they market. No e-cigarette has done that. That's why all these products are technically illegal, which is why San Francisco banned them. They're technically illegal, and they are all black market. They're all unregulated. We don't know what's in any of these products. All right. The other elephant in the room is, well, but aren't they for, and we're a pediatric audience, so probably preaching to the choir, but I get so much pushback about we need e-cigarettes to help adults quit. And that is absolutely wrong. We do not need e-cigarettes in our toolkit to help adults quit. We have approved ways to help adults quit. It's not easy, but we do know that adults can use nicotine replacement therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, other things that are used actually at this university very successfully, have been approved by the FDA, and we have evidence backing it up. We don't have good evidence for e-cigarettes helping adults quit. We should not be talking about that as a cessation device. If anything, the data show that most adults who use e-cigarettes to quit wind up using both dual use, e-cigarettes and cigarettes, or they wind up switching back and forth between the two, giving them even more nicotine into their bodies and other chemicals. So we could talk about that more at Q&A if you want. So what am I doing around this issue in my lab? We've been looking at a three-pronged approach: research, prevention, education, and advocacy. And my lab, to give you the pictures of my lab, many of whom are here, and I always like to say any of the cool slides they made, the boring slides I made. But really, this has been a labor of a very, very large group lab right now. So let's talk about research. So our research is informed by a conceptual model that is very much theory-based, health belief model, theory of planned behavior, all the decision-making models that are out there that basically look through the fact that marketing and messaging really influence, and product packaging influence perceptions of risk, perceptions of acceptability, intentions to use, and behavior. I don't have time to go through all the papers on all this, so I'm going to highlight just a few things that I think are relevant to your thinking and also your research or clinical work. So first of all, let's talk about flavors. How many flavors are in e-cigarettes? Lab, do not say. Husband, do not say. You've all heard me. How many flavors are in these products? Thank you. All right. So here are some of the flavors. That one gets, every time I show this, everybody says chicken and waffles. I've never had chicken and waffles. All right, there are over 15,000 flavors, and I get the proponents of vaping to say adults need these flavors to quit smoking. I'm sorry, adults don't need honey doo-doo, unicorn poo, sugar booger to quit smoking a cigarette. They just don't need that. These flavors are attracting kids. And if you look at it, really, we know that the tobacco industry has a kids menu. That's the way we've been talking about it. But I also worry not just about the fact that these flavors are attracting kids, that's a huge piece of it, but there are also plenty of studies showing that the flavors themselves are impacting lung and heart function. So in and of themselves. So what's in a lot of these? If you look at what's in these flavors, it's diacetyl, which is in popcorn. And we know that if you heat popcorn and you breathe in the resultant aerosol from it for a long period of time, you're going to get lung injury. So it's diacetyl, it's cinnamonaldehyde, it's vanillin. These are flavors that are fine if you want to eat them. You can take a Dorito and eat it, but if you heat it to 450 degrees, which is what these e-cigarette devices are doing, and then you inhale the aerosol, which, by the way, it's not a vapor. I call it vaping because that's what the world is calling it, but I try to use aerosol or e-cigarettes. They're aerosols. That is what you're breathing into your body. It's not harmless water vapor, as most kids say. So flavors themselves are attracting youth, and they are harmful in and of themselves. So let's talk about some of the misperceptions, which is a lot of where our research focuses on. How is it that adolescents are perceiving these? So I'm just going to highlight a few things. A couple of papers we had early on, not just on Juul, this is actually pre-Juul, but looking at perceptions of e-cigarettes across the board and how do those compare to perceptions of other tobacco products. And not surprisingly, adolescents were perceiving e-cigarettes to be less risky and less addictive compared to all other tobacco products. And you may say, well, but they are. Well, not so sure anymore. I would say early on, a lot of us were saying, yeah, probably would if you had to, but now, not so sure. We're less sure about the cancer risk, although we're starting to see evidence for that as well. When it comes to heart and lung, many people are saying it's not better or worse, it's different, but we're still seeing issues. And remember, we've only had these on the market a few years. It took us 50 years to really gather all the data that we need for cigarettes. I don't want that. I don't want to be waiting 50 years to figure this out with our new generation. But when it comes to less addictive, no. I mean, if anything, these products, particularly the newer ones, are more addictive. So youth are really misperceiving these products. We then did a study that we published a year ago in JAMA Network where we looked specifically at Juul. And this was interesting. We published this paper too because JAMA didn't want us to use the word Juul. They want us to use pod-based. And we had this interesting methodological issue and morality of, but we didn't study pod-based, which is what Juuls are called. We didn't study generically. We specifically asked about Juul, and we need to. They have 85% of the market share. So finally, we compromised where the title and the intro and the discussion is pod-based, but the methods and results are Juul. And so that was quite the fight. So what did we find? We found that, not surprisingly, adolescents are using Juul more than other e-cigarettes. So if you look at it, that's the increasing trend. Not surprisingly, and yet we had only studied these for a few months, and that youth are saying they themselves were more addicted than those who were using other e-cigarettes or cigarettes, and yet they thought they were less addicted. So they were totally confused about what their body was going through, about what they were using, but we knew objectively through some measures of addiction that they were addicted. Now we talk about flavors. So what are the flavors youth are using in some of these products? Well, what we find is for e-cigarettes in general, we've got about 12% using mint and menthol in our study. The numbers are small. It's a small study, but these have been replicated in many, many bigger studies. And about 46% are using the flavors. If you look at Juul on the left, we've got about 26 and 28% using mint or menthol and fruit. Why do I care about this? When we go and talk about flavor bans or eliminating the sale of flavors throughout the country, which I've been doing a lot, we'll talk about that more in a few minutes, I get a lot of pushback on, well, that's fine. All right, maybe we can get rid of the fruit, but what about mint? Let's keep that for adults. Kids aren't using that. Kids are using mint flavors as much. And when I talked to a 16-year-old, I said, of course, I love to chew mint gum. I love mint e-cigarettes. It's a big flavor they're using, and the national data actually show about 60% have used mint in the last month. Then we asked them about the marijuana, just one slide on marijuana or cannabis to throw that in, and about 17% had admitted to opening the Juul pod and putting in a form of liquid cannabis and using it that way. And that might be part of why we're seeing the vaping-related illnesses. They're using the devices, but getting THC, and the combination maybe what's affecting their lungs, we're not sure. Then we asked them, how do you best describe a Juul? And this is, I think, important for clinical practice for you all when you're thinking about it. And we said, well, is it a nicotine delivery device? Is it a pod? Is it a vape? Is it an e-cigarette? Nah, it's all over the place. And so really what it is, it's a Juul. Juul and Juuling is like Kleenex. It's like a Band-Aid. It has its name all of itself. And I did this great thing where I was in LA Unified School District a few years ago, before Juul, but just e-cigarettes were on the market. And I said, so tell me everything you know about e-cigarettes. And there was a pause. And they stared at me. And I did this on purpose, and I waited. And they looked and said, does she mean a hookah? Does she mean vape? What does she mean? And then, yeah, vape. They're not using the terms e-cigarettes. And now if you ask them, are you vaping? No. Are you Juuling? Yes. So it's really important when we do our work here, when you're screening somebody for using e-cigarettes, and by the way, don't assume that they're using it with nicotine. They may very well be using it with other drugs. So ask them specifically. I don't know if the resident is here, not to call you out, it was a great story where you were looking at a patient here who was obese, so looking at sugar-sweetened beverage, and she was mentioning the patient some product she was using with some wild name, and it took you about 5 or 10 minutes to realize that was an e-juice, not a sugar-sweetened beverage. So they're going through, you know, honey, doo-doo, and sugar burger on these weird names that you may not know what they are. Also makes research really complicated, because what flavor is sugar burger? I do not want to know. So then we also asked them, and these are unpublished data that are in review. We think are going to get published soon. But we asked them, so, because this is the big question I get, so how much are youth using? And then you get a lot of people saying they're really not using that much. So we asked them, and these are adolescents and young adults. So how long does it take for you to finish a Juul pod? And you'll see everything from less than a day to more than 5 days. Sorry, how many Juul pods do you usually finish in a week? Excuse me, less than 1 to more than 5. But we've got this 51% who are not sure. And we're seeing that constantly in all of our data, not sure. And we're saying, okay, this is interesting. What we are realizing through some qualitative data is that they're just puffing on it all day. So they have no idea what they're using, and they're sharing them a lot. And what we're learning is that they're bringing the device to a party or to some event, and then they're buying their own pods. So the device they're sharing, and then they're choosing their flavors of the day to bring into it. So they're really not aware. And think about how many times you sit in a room, probably today through this talk, how many times you're checking your email or just looking at your phone without even realizing it. That's what these young people are doing. And they're able to hide them pretty easily and just puff on it throughout the day. So I think that that's why we're seeing not sure. And when I talk to, this is the other one, how long does it take to finish? We've got most saying in a week and a lot saying 1 day or so. But when we actually talk to youth and ask them, well, really, what are you using? We're hearing between 1 to 3 pods a day for some of the youth who are addicted right now. These data, by the way, are almost a year old. So much is changing. Every day we're seeing the need to recollect data. All right, then how much nicotine do you think is in each pod? So we asked them that in terms of milligrams per milliliter, and the majority say they don't know. And we asked this for Juul and for Soren. Oh, my slide didn't come out, typical problem, right? A couple others are there, but for all products. But the most important is that they don't know. And then if you look at this, the real answer is 59 milligrams. I think I have that in here, sorry. No, sorry. The real answer is 59 milligrams per milliliter. A Juul is 0.7 milliliter. So if you just do 59 times 0.7, you get your 41 milligrams. So the real answer is 59. Very few people said that. And what we find is that a lot of people on the right said 5 milligrams. And we couldn't figure that out. When I went to talk to a youth in Idaho, he said, oh, it's 50% nicotine. I said, that's not possible. That would kill you. You couldn't even take it in. Why do we see that? It's the product packaging. So if you look, this is a Juul package. It says 5% strength. Notice it doesn't say nicotine anywhere, just says 5% strength. So when you ask them, actually adults have no idea what 5% means. If you think about your milk consumption, you maybe use skim milk or 1 or 2 or whole milk. Anybody know how much milk fat is in whole milk? 4%. Generally. So what does that really mean? To a young person looking at this, they have absolutely no idea. When I've asked them, they say, what's 5% strength? I didn't even realize that was nicotine. And that's a lot of what we've been pushing back on with the FDA is you need to have product regulation where these packagings are honest and gives the real amount. So that's one of the other issues that we're having. So here's some of the marketing. You probably have seen this that's come out around Juul, that they are really targeting young people. Anybody know who she looks like? All right, Andre. She's not, but she looks like it. And you know, it's this is not an adult. This is what a young person would have: the high ponytail, the hands on the hip, the more Letterman style jacket. That is somebody who's using, and by the way, using a Juul similarly to how you would use a cigarette, which is not how people are using Juul. They don't hold it like a cigarette, but that's very much the marketing that these young people have seen, and a lot of what's also been attracting young people to use these products. We also have ads like, you said it, mango, love, 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 the mango pods. I've tried others and nothing compares. That's really attracting, you know, adults don't say love, love, love. That is very much a youth attracted and youth facing kind of thing. And maybe you do, but I'm going to assume you don't on a regular basis. So here, these are some of the things that we're seeing. And the other ones that we're seeing are memes that are going around like, will you marry me with a Juul? Or would you rather go, if you're dying of thirst, to water or to pods? And this is, you know, we're all laughing about it, but these are the things that young people are being faced with on a daily basis. And the sad thing is when I talk to young people who say, they'll say to me, the advertisements, the use, the pressure is so pervasive. And we used to talk about, if you just asked me, you know, when I was in grad school, a long time ago, we would talk about peer pressure as being, come on, use it. And then it became a softer peer pressure. It was more like, everyone's doing it, so I should, whatever the doing it is. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, all my areas of research, that's what happened. And now I'm hearing back to the, come on, you need to try this, you need to try it. And when I was giving a talk to youth in Burlingame, I had this one kid who came up, and everybody calls me Dr. Bonnie because I can't pronounce my last name. And Dr. Bonnie, can I have a fake Juul? And I said, why do you want a fake Juul? And she said, I need to pretend I'm getting so much pressure to use this product, and I don't want to use it. So I felt really bad. And so we talked about things she should do. And I came back to my lab and said, we're not creating a fake Juul. We're going to create more refusal skills in our toolkit. And that's what we've been doing. But this is the kind of situation I'm out there that I hear all the time. And then when I was in New York talking to a group of kids, they said to me that there was a group who formed an alliance of students against destructive behaviors, destructive, what's the other D? I can't remember. But they formed that, and they all got together and they said, you know, we are about the only people in the school right now talking against these products. Everybody else is for them. They're either using it, or they're about to use it, or they're thinking about using it. It's just so pervasive out there right now. So then we looked at, do flavored ads target youth? You know the answer, but this was important. We published this last year because the FDA keeps going back to and hearing the lobbyists from the vaping industry, which says these ads are for adults. So how many of you adults in the audience really want to use something that tastes sweet like a cupcake, or smoothie. Even my now 19-year-old suddenly told me, you know what, Mom, those really sickening sweet cookies and stuff, I don't want anymore. This is not what young adults or adults have. These are for kids. So we asked them, young people, so are these products really, in these ads, and these are real ads that Rob Jackler's lab here, Sarita at Stanford gave me, and we asked them, are these ads targeting somebody your age, and they were a little bit older adolescents, and some very young adults, somebody younger, somebody a little older, or somebody much older. And not surprisingly, if you look at the dark purple on the right, those are the people who are much older, perceived by the adolescents to say that these are targeting somebody much older. And instead, the majority of youth said these are targeting somebody my age, a little older. What 18-year-old does not want to be a little older? Or somebody much younger. And if you look at the cupcake one, the one at the bottom, you know, all the youth were saying, no, this is for somebody much younger. And yet these are the ads that we're allowing out there. I presented this to the FDA, who of course all, you know, went around the poster like, we need the data, we need the data. You've got the data, do something. The other thing that right now the e-cigarette companies are not allowed to do, they're not allowed to call themselves a cessation device. If they do, then they have to get regulated by the Center for Drug and Evaluation, CDER, and not by the Center for Tobacco Products. So all the e-cigarettes want to be referred to as tobacco products, even though I get pushback on that. I love on my social media, which is so me right now to me, but I get these are not tobacco products. Where's the nicotine coming from? Potatoes? That was a fun interchange that we had. My lab challenged somebody to eat 1,000 potatoes to make up one unit of nicotine into that conversation. So instead, what the e-cigarettes companies have been doing is circumventing the cessation ads by saying things like never going back or paper or plastic or it works for you, these kind of subtle things. So you've got some that are more explicit like never going back, or the more implicit like paper, plastic, or blue works for you. So we gave these again to adolescents and asked them to interpret it. Oh, sorry. I'm bringing the extra data. And what we find is that, not surprisingly, when we gave them a list, what is this ad telling you? Is it telling you that it's cool? Is it talking about flavors? Is it talking about health risks? Is it talking about freedom? Is it talking about addiction? Overwhelmingly, all the youth in the study knew that these, particularly the explicit ads, but even the implicit ads, are telling you that these products, these e-cigarette products, are helpful in helping you quit smoking cigarettes. Now, one, that's a lie. There's no evidence for it. Second, it's actually illegal for them to be doing that. And third, it's given the young people the impression of, well, if these are okay to stop smoking, then they must be okay to me. And that's another reason why we're seeing young people going and being drawn to these products. So let's talk about access. This is a picture I got from Rob Jackler, and when I was in Idaho, I saw the same picture or the same issue. Didn't take a picture though, as I was running off to a meeting. But student discounts. If you think about a student, the majority of students are under 21. California's legal age for using e-cigarettes and all tobacco products is 21. This is not targeting adults. Okay. So then I get a lot of questions about price. This is the other issue that we're seeing. Right now, a Juul pod is less expensive than cigarettes. The Juul device is $34. That's just the device itself. The pods, you can buy 4 pods for $16. In the state, these are state of California numbers. In the state of California, you can buy a pack of cigarettes for $9.55. If you multiply that by 4 packs of cigarettes is $38 compared to $16 for 4 pods. And if you believe our math, you're really getting more than 4 packs of cigarettes. Juuls are so much less expensive. And now we're seeing with other e-cigarettes, the disposables are about $3, right? That we're seeing. They're incredibly cheap, not very difficult for you to get. So why do we get concerned about this? This is a paper that a grad student and I recently published in JAMA Network. And what we basically found is that adolescents who own promotional materials and coupons, they have hats, they have t-shirts, this longitudinal data, they're 2 times more likely to go on to use that product 6 months later. And that's probably not shocking. We've seen that with other tobacco products, first time that we're seeing it with e-cigarette products. And what was particularly maddening is just when this came out, I was in the state of California testifying, and Ashley Gould, who was a part of Juuls, she just got ousted or whatever, no longer there. She sat across when we were talking about regulating e-cigarettes and regulating flavors to say, no, we really are all about cessation. In fact, we have a coupon for Juuls in every Marlboro pack of cigarettes now. Okay, so evidence that is going to attract people, not stop them. All right, let's talk about prevention quickly, as I want to leave time for questions. So Mary, thank you, gave the shout out for our tobacco prevention toolkit. This is a toolkit that has a bunch of activities, an educator crash courses, discussion guides that you can use to actually give patients. We give them to teachers who give them as homework, to parents at home to be able to follow along with the students to find out what they're learning. We have a number of fact sheets. If you'd like fact sheets to print out for your clinics, let me know. We've got those and we're building out a lot more. We have huge quizzes that are fun quizzes, and we have lots and lots of PowerPoints, some of which you've seen here, really fun, animated, cool, that have talking points, so you can just read the script on there. So that is available. Here's the table of contents. It's an enormous amount of work that the lab's put together to be able to put this out, and this is online. It's free. We actually go do, thanks to a lot of funding, go do free trainings throughout the country. We're going next week to Hawaii to do 3 days of training with, actually, we're not gonna have much fun. It's actually like 8 hours of training a day for 3 days. We have reached over 1 million youth throughout the country. We're in hundreds of schools and used by thousands of teachers. And just a really quick thing that the Surgeon General tweeted out about our toolkit just last week, so we're very excited about that. It does work. I'm not going to bore you with the data, but we are right now trying to run a randomized control trial. That's hard because no school wants to be the control school. No school wants to be randomized to a comparison. Even if we do a crossover or delay where they get it next semester, they're saying, no, 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 the issue's now. We're not waiting. And so I've been telling the funder, I can do pre-posts. We're doing great pre-posts, showing lots of effects of the toolkit. Where nobody is willing to be in the control group, which to me is data in and of itself, but it's been interesting. All right, quickly to end on advocacy. As some of you have heard, and Mary's been amazingly supportive in this. I have gone throughout the country testifying around youth addiction, testifying in Congress, testifying in different states, and talking about some of these issues. And actually today at noon, in the middle of all my teaching, is the first time I'm actually going to go against lawyers virtually in a court case against flavorers and whether or not we should be banning flavors. And I'm just going to show you a couple of quick pictures, on not to toot horn, but just because I think it's the first time and very interesting to be sitting next to the vaping industry. I think this guy actually was the cigar industry. This was a person from the UK for vaping industry, and I'm the sole public health person going up against them around this issue. This is also cool. Forget me. There's a, unfortunately the picture doesn't show it, but a 15-year-old testifying with me. And I and others who are doing this across the country have had enormous success in getting young people to help us. And then this is where I was in doing a congressional hearing just last week. So what you can do, stay informed, do what you're doing. Stay informed, learn, become an advocate. If anybody wants to hop on board, we'd love to have more voices. I know we have people from the community and from the school district here. We're all working very, very, very hard to try to deal with some of these issues. Start the conversation. Please don't say to your patients or your kids, you're not vaping, right? Because the response back is not going to be, well, actually, you're wrong. I am vaping. Have an open conversation. I just went to a talk. I heard about these things. I'm concerned about it. Patient, I'm concerned about this. Tell me what you know. And then ease into those questions about it rather than just coming at the assumption that they are or they're not. Although the assumption they are is probably more correct right now. And then unfortunately right now, we have no FDA approved medications. We have no FDA approved nicotine replacement therapies right now to help young people. It's something that I've been collaborating on with some people across the country. My lab is working on some really great curriculum to help people stop smoking. But until we have the approved NRTs, even though I know that we're using them, but until we have it, we have no guidance for healthcare providers. There are some really good texting, cessation, 1-800 no buts. 1-800-KICK-BUTTS, 1-800-NO-VAPE. There are different things around the country that are there to varying success if you're looking for a more immediate tool. My Life Might Quit, which is not in California yet, but it is probably coming here. This is one that I actually helped create and teach their coaches. That seems to have, it has a live coach rather than just a texting coach on there. That seems to be having some effect. So to end, you know, we've got the usual suspects. These are all the original tobacco companies that are out there making these products, these cigarettes. And we often say that, you know, the problem with these is they're delivering nicotine in the most non-invasive way, the most secretive way to young people. We're introducing flavors to young people. That's why they're using these products. And they're using marketing strategies, social media that just caught us off guard and we weren't prepared for it. And then to end with my favorite company, Juul, says that they're not big tobacco, and that, but in truth, they are big tobacco. Altria just bought them. 35% of their share was just bought by Altria, and if you can't do any worse than that, then they recently ousted their CEO, and their new CEO is an Altria guy. So thank you. Want to leave time for questions. Thank you.
A schooler. Care about time. And what I really do when I go to the end of it, so are people using the same station in terms of ad?
Yeah. Yeah. When I talk to people, and we had a conversation, our first year fellow in adolescent medicine about this, they're using it off label. The question is how much? So if you really believe and see 41 milligrams, a patch is 21, are you going to do one patch? Are you going to give two patches? Are you going to give one patch and then supplement with some gum? And so and the answer is often yes, yes, yes. We're trying all of those. We don't have data to inform what's the better way to go about doing it. But my message has been, we need to at least think about it. And I'm going to the FDA to say, you know, is not only do we not have nicotine replacement therapy that's approved, we also don't even have guidelines on how much to use and evidence for people that are doing it. So that is something that we're trying to put together. But the short answer is yes, people are doing it off label.
I feel like right now, as clinic asking about vaping, and we're getting that, we need some guidance on
Correct.
how to.
Correct. We're getting there. We just put in any Cancer Institute people here. We just put in a grant today to do exactly this, because that's our goal. Is very much.
So right now, there's guidance.
There's no guidance, and everywhere on my social media, and I know that's sad to go to that, but that's sort of where all the things are coming down right now. Is we need help, we need help, we need help. But also the AAP, American Academy. Academy Pediatrics. I actually just hopped on a call yesterday. I'm advising them on putting out some of these guidance too. So everybody's working on it. It's just nobody has it yet.
Right now, we're sending this show.
Right, and I would say most people are doing patches. Lee and then Alan, sorry. Thank you.
In the social dimension, beyond we have a colleague as Dean Schillinger, voice to address everything. It's really very inspiring. I'm wondering if you're imagining a lot like that, using youth voices to combat.
We are, and in fact, Alan Marsh's here this morning. I just hired, thanks to some of the donor money, just hired a wonderful public health. She is a doctor in public health who's been in the schools for 25 years, and she and Adrian, who's also been in the schools a long time, are going to combine. We're creating a youth advisory group, and we're going to actually have youth come in and do some of the social media and get the messages out for us, because you know, we show them things, and half the things they like is some things they go, that's too nerdy, and so we're going to be using their voices very much more. Oh.
With traditional cigarettes, a lot of the progress that was made was because of all the harms from secondhand smoke.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's right, Ms. Trini. So the question was, we know a lot about secondhand smoke from cigarettes. What do we know about for e-cigarettes? So at first, the message was, not sure about secondhand smoke, lots of third-hand smoke. Third-hand where, you know, goes on the carpets and on your clothes and you touch it, it forms a toxic, becomes toxic that way. But more and more evidence is coming out to show the secondhand effects of e-cigarettes as well, which isn't surprising. So basically, if you look at what's emitted into the air from this huge plume, there's propylene glycol, glycerin, and traces of nicotine that are also coming off of that. So yes, not a whole lot of evidence yet, but enough to have us feel pretty comfortable to say that there's some secondhand aerosol effects.
What can you tell us about that have been associated?
So the question was about these serious lung injuries and death that's been associated. So as I was saying in the beginning, we don't know to what extent these are marijuana or cannabis, THC, versus the nicotine kinds of aerosols that people are inhaling. So far, it seems like most of the deaths and the injuries are coming more from the THC, but we still don't know because most people are using these devices for both THC and nicotine. So we're not 100% sure what it's coming from. What we do say with the CDC is saying one is the recommendation of no vaping, period. This and then again, and also the CDC was saying no black market, but again, they're all black market right now. So, and then the second piece is that we often tell parents and healthcare providers, if you see a kid who's short of breath, who's having trouble breathing, having issues with athletics or anything like that, take it seriously and take it seriously quickly, because a lot of the earlier cases came into the ER or came to their doc and the doc said, you've got asthma or whatever, go home. And then they came back a week later and we were in the hospital. So taking those things pretty seriously right now is what's important. And they're not 100% sure. There's some question of maybe it's some oil that's being used to carry in the aerosol into the body that's coating the lungs and causing the restrictions, but nobody really knows because every case is so different.
In that regard, I've had that same question because in an article I read recently, the wrong in these patients is vastly different from patient to patient. They look at these, and then you read in the articles that 15,000 plus flavors. There's multiple different ways of creating the vapor or heating them up. Causes chemical reactions that any compound that didn't exist when they put it in there in the first place.
Right.
So, is anybody shown that this is about any?
So that's a really good question. So the question, the short of the question was, is it safe without any ingredients in there? There's also studies showing that even if you took out nicotine, just the propylene glycol and the glycerin is a problem. The flavorants are a problem by themselves. And then even if they weren't there, there's some evidence that you're getting little particles, and they're tinier than what we saw with cigarettes, of both metal and plastic that you're inhaling. So I would say, even if you just put no liquid and you're just, breathing in the heat or whatever it would emit, even those can have problems for it. And nobody really knows exactly, to isolate each of the different components or each of the different chemicals or sources of it. We don't know, and you're right. There's not an easy common denominator other than it's vaping. And so, and a lot of people think it might be the devices themselves versus the chemicals that are in there. Go.
Great work and advocacy. Sounds like Juuls is becoming the new sector. So, question regarding prevalence. Do you have any idea about what use is like on this schools?
So the question was to use locally, either on campus or in the local high schools. Our data are California data, and our data are showing 20 to 30% of youth who are using these products. Palo Alto, I think, is there, if not higher, that we're seeing, and those are the newer numbers. I'm actually trying to redo the study. If anybody has schools I can get into, to redo the study and not just look at Juul, but the newer products that are out there. I have not done a study of campus. I'd love to, if we can do that. I think that would be fantastic. Anecdotally, in talking to some of the college students, it's pretty pervasive on campus as well. So we don't know what's being done locally, lots of stuff. So the people right behind you are from Palo Alto Unified, the PTA president and others who are really working, and I been pseudo-advising. I've been, unfortunately, less here than I have been elsewhere just at a time, but doing some great ordinances. There's a great group working together in the Bay Area. There's lots of stuff going on in Sacramento and in California. So lots and lots of policies being put forth around not only flavor bans, but also tobacco 21, reinforcing. That's the other thing, is if you're in an area that has a vape shop that is selling to under 18 or under 21, please let us know. We'll help you report it, because that's the only way. Is we just have to stamp this out at every level right now.
Yeah, just to follow up, I am the city council president for Carlton Unified School District, so where Morton here is also our council. There will be statistics in a month for both of the high schools, and then there's the California Chicks.
Right.
People will also come January 22nd, put that on the calendar. If the California State Department of Public Health has any additional new information. There's also a leaders breakfast for people in the community if you want to participate on the 23rd. It's a morning. And that has helped us in the past when we've had emergent issues like this, such as suicide questions that we had.
Right. I can. Thank you, Jade. Jade was just giving, for people on the Zoom, giving a list. I think I have some of those dates. If anybody's interested, let me know, and I can either put you in contact with Jade or get you those dates, because I think it is important for the community to reach out. You got time for one more? One more. Yeah. Yeah. Person behind you. Sorry.
Urine, blood, exit, something simple.
So it's a great question, and I wish we did. The question was, do we have some biomarker or other tests to be able to do this? I don't in my lab, but I am collaborating. The U54 is working with UCSF, and the UCSF folks do have a way of testing some biomarkers in either the urine or the spit, which is what they're collecting. So I am involved in a study as a co-PI on that we are looking at levels of NNK and other biomarkers in there. We don't know the, some of the people doing that research right now believe that youth are less addicted than adults and don't actually believe youth are reaching addiction. And I think a lot of us are saying maybe the biomarker count has to change, or your level or your threshold, because clearly from a behavioral side, they're addicted, and maybe we're not seeing it yet in the biomarker side or nicotine levels and things like that. So people are looking at that because, as going back to that adult slide, we've never seen something divide the public health as much as this has. All my adult worrying about adults quitting are not all, but a lot of them are pro e-cigarettes, and then all of us youth people are staunchly against them. And I think part of it has to do with to what extent we're seeing the chemical reactions and the addiction levels in there. So we need better objective tests. All right, one more. Thank you.
I wonder if you had any thoughts about Juuls to use its for the delivery of prescription medicines.
Yeah. So the question was, how do I feel about Juuls' attempts to use their technology for prescriptions? No, I don't feel good about that. I mean, period. Some of you are well aware, and some of you aren't, that Juul actually had a prevention curriculum that they put out that we wrote a paper about, and also was part of a hearing in July in Congress, that they stole some of our materials and then were dishonest about it, and outright lied. And so I don't feel good about any prevention work that they're trying to do. They also have come up with puff topography, where they can actually evaluate, similar to what was asked before, evaluate the usage and be able to get the data back. That's marketing data. And my worry is that everything they're doing right now, and maybe I'm cynical, but I think there's enough evidence to show why I'm cynical, is everything they're doing is marketing and feeding back to what they're trying to do. So I just don't trust them. But yeah, on that note, thank you.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.